Watching Beyond Markets, welcome. I'm Esther Awoni. Many thanks for joining us today. On the show, we'll discuss Nigeria's recently revised National Financial Inclusion Strategy. You can join this conversation with the hashtag Beyond Markets, and you can also follow my Twitter handle too, at Esther O. Awoni. And the Central Bank of Nigeria engaged with stakeholders in financial inclusion to review the National Financial Inclusion Strategy for the country. The revised strategy aims to focus its intervention around women, the youth, rural areas, the northern geopolitical zones, and micro, small, and medium enterprises, as they believe that these will be the most crucial to increasing financial inclusion in Nigeria. Esaie Diei, CEO of EFINA, joins me now for this conversation. We're constantly talking about financial inclusion, especially because of the impact it has, and also especially at the rural level, especially as it affects SMEs, those in the rural areas, and women, because we know the positive impact that women, empowering women in that way obviously has very important and positive impact. So now the central bank, the federal government, have decided to review the National Financial Inclusion Strategy just to see how it's been working and what we've achieved so far. But let me let you help us understand the methodology that was used and just the entire process of it.
First of all, I want to say thank you for inviting EFINA to talk about financial inclusion. Just to give you a background, what we do at EFINA, we are focusing more on providing support to the regulators and also to the stakeholders.
Okay.
And our mission is to make the Nigerian financial system work better, especially for the poor. So we are focusing on the poor. So back to your questions, I think the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, that started in 2007, and so far many things has been achieved. If you look at the financial inclusion rate in 2010, we were at exclusion rate, we were at 46%.
Okay.
Currently, and based on the recent 812, the access to financial inclusion released by EFINA, exclusion rate is at 36.8%. So a lot of things has been done by all the stakeholders, especially the regulators, the CBN, and the stakeholders who are involved to make sure that financial inclusion reaches many people in the country.
Now, for that success that was achieved, the reduction in the exclusion rate, what would you say that were also identified as the most impactful, the most effective methods that worked, that helped us get those numbers down?
It's good to know that there have been some guidelines last year. For instance, we have the super agent license, which allows now new players to develop agent network. Okay. To make sure that financial services reach the last mile. We have this one. We have also the collaboration between the different industries like telco and the banks. And today you can see people are using electronic channel to transact, like a USSD banking from your code, from your phone. You can dial a short code to do transaction. And also in terms of literacy, financial literacy, a lot of efforts have been made to make sure that people now understand some of the financial services. There's still a long way to go, but I think all the stakeholders have taken financial inclusion seriously in their agenda.
Okay, now the federal government, the CBN has decided that, look, yes, we've made progress, but we need to review, just take stock and just see how we can better move forward. And I'm just looking at, it's quite a bulky document, but just looking at what they call the priority actions and time frame, and some of what was revealed from the process. The revised strategy revealed that 46.5% of females, 52.5% of those in rural areas, and 53.5% of youth aged 18 to 25, 70% of those from the Northwest and 62% of those from the Northeast were excluded in 2016. They say MSMEs are also peculiarly excluded from the financial services. So, there's still some gaps, still some places where we can make. But what are your thoughts in terms of how why this review, one, became necessary and how we're going to work on these findings?
Great. It's good. After 10 years of the financial inclusion strategy, it's good to stop and then look at what has been achieved and where we want to focus now. And like you said, the focus going forward, because the target is 20% by 2020, the exclusion target. because we want to achieve 80% of inclusion. So we still have 2 years. And when I say 2020, it's 31st of December 2020.
Okay.
So we still have 2 years. So the focus right now, and also at our level at EFINA, is on the women. And in the month of February, we are going to start a national assessment of women financial inclusion in Nigeria to know what are their needs, why women are a bit excluded. Because if you compare to men today, we have a 32%. Compared to there's a gap, we will address it so that we can also provide credible information to the regulators to enable some policy formulation. We have also focused on the youth. And we believe today the millennials, they have adopted social media. So we are also moving some of our resources to understand them and also provide and work with the regulators and also the stakeholders to make sure that those youth can adopt financial inclusions, going to the schools, going to the places where they can easily be reached to drive financial inclusion. The North, from our report and from our access to financial services, in the Northwest, currently we have 66% exclusions. Okay. In the Northeast, we have 55%. So there's also a focus to drive financial inclusion in the North. But once we do it by focusing on the women, on the youth, on the North, I believe by 2020 we should be able to get closer to the target.
I guess I can imagine why. I mean, places like the Northwest, or just the North generally, will be a difficult spot because, I mean, many of these places don't even have roads and are motorable. And of course, there's the issue of insecurity in the northern part of the country. Some perhaps even no-go areas. To what extent would that be a big challenge in helping, at least in that region, to helping to get the number of the exclusion rate down?
So what we're trying to do also is to look at the cultural barriers. I know, for instance, in the North, some of the financial services are not adopted because of the religious challenge. So last year, for instance, we brought from outside a consultant who knows Islamic products. So that we will talk to them, we will have a meeting with them, and design in collaboration with some of the banks in the North, like Jais Bank, focusing on this
Islamic
target.
Products,
So to develop the service for them. We will move some of our resources in terms of capacity building and to train them, and also use all the tools, translate into local languages to make sure that people understand what they need in terms of financial services. Okay.
Now, this new revised strategy identifies what it calls 5 priorities that it says are most crucial to increasing financial inclusion in Nigeria. There's 5 of them. It starts with creating an enabling environment for the expansion of DFS. What can you tell us about that?
Good. So last year, CBN came with the new guidelines. We call it a payment service bank, to allow more stakeholders to step in. If you remember, the mobile money excluded telco. And we know today telco, they have a large number of customers. They have a large agent network out there where they are selling their services. So by bringing the telco, they will provide digital financial services easily by reaching out to their customers. Mobile technology today, we have close to 100 and let's say 50 million handsets out there. They can easily be converted into mobile financial services users.
Okay, let's move on to enabling. It says to enable the rapid growth of agent. Okay, we talked about that agent network nationwide. I know that has been quite instrumental. But I mean, do we need to really step up on that this year, or I know that it worked last year, but how are we going to tweak it for this year to make it work better, or going forward at least?
Great. We need an agent network because the challenge we have is in some places you don't have access. Okay. So CBN came with the new SANEF, which is the Share Agent Network, to make sure that we can take a distribution network to the rural area. So we need to continue working on that one, because even if we have the payment service bank out there, people can get money on their phone, but they will need touch points where they can go easily. So the target is to have a 500,000 agent network nationwide.
How many do we have right now?
Currently, we are getting close to, let's say, putting everything together, close to 100,000, but there's still effort to make sure that we have that number across the nation.
Okay, so he also mentions here harmonize KYC, there's know your customer requirements for opening and operating account, mobile wallet on all financial service platforms. I mean, we had the BVN, and I thought that went a long way in helping with that.
Absolutely. So, but one of the challenges, okay, you want to open an account today using the phone because you can do it by dial short code. But the next step is having the BVN. So agent network will also help to register people for the BVN.
Okay.
So you don't need to go to a bank to get your BVN. From the nearest agent to your place, you can go there to get your BVN and easily be included.
What about the adoption of cashless payment channels, particularly government to person to government channels?
Great. So the PSB will help this one because by moving everything electronic, it will also help people to adopt cashless payment. For instance, we started with POS, ATM. Now today you have the USSD. And then the fintech also, they are coming on board to facilitate the adoption of electronic payment nationwide. So we still have some activities to carry on. And by working together, all the stakeholders, I'm sure we can make sure that cashless is also the target to be achieved.
I know that, I mean, to a large extent, the success of many of these, I mean, these priorities will also rest on the level of monitoring and also evaluation as we go along. What can you tell us about that in terms of what we're perhaps going to do differently this year in terms of evaluation and monitoring?
So we will carry out some impact assessment analysis over there, and this is one of the focus of EFINA.
Okay.
We have a research department to make sure that all the initiative will be monitored, because what you cannot measure, you cannot also monitor it.
Absolutely.
So by doing that, we bring back to the regulators, to the stakeholders, credible information for them to improve policies and also to drive some incentive and to the place where we need them to make impact immediately.
Esaie, well, thank you for your time so far. We're going to take a short break and we'll come back and pick up from where we left off. I've been speaking to Esaie Diei, CEO of EFINA. If you're just joining us, Esaie Diei, CEO of EFINA, is with me today, and we are discussing Nigeria's revised National Financial Inclusion Strategy. Thank you so much, Esaie, for your time so far.
Thank you, Esther.
Now, as we discussed earlier, 20% by the year 2020 for the financially excluded, that is a target.
Absolutely.
But there are other specific products and channel targets that the government is also focusing on. There's a long list of them, but let's just take them by the lowest, or perhaps the most, the biggest achievement we've had as at 2015. Looking at POS, the point of sale POS channels. As at 2010, we're 13.3%. By 2015, we're at 442.6%, and the target for 2020 is 850. What can you tell us about that? And it just, I mean, the numbers are incredible.
Absolutely, and I think today all the banks, they have been promoting cards. When you have your card, you can use your card on the ATM. But what is the point of going to take cash from ATM and then use it on and use the cash in the supermarket? Now we have many POS out there, and also communication to the customers of the bank, also to encourage them to go cashless. And I think that this is a result of some of the initiative CBN worked on some years ago to reduce cash in the economy.
Okay, so looking at other metrics, I see insurance, and the numbers for insurance are quite low. As at 2010, we're just 1%, 2015, 21% only. But for 2020, the target is 40%. I mean, I knew that insurance, I mean, is being a challenge for the country. Penetration is still very low compared to our other African peers. But what are your hopes, expectations for this?
I think the NICOM is working on some guidelines to make sure that they bring insurance to many people. Today, when you look at insurance, I mean, you need to be literate to understand insurance. So literacy is also an issue, and it's something also we can work with the regulators on that one.
Another important item on this list is credit. We know how very important credit is. As at 2010, we're 2%, 2015, 26%, 2020, the hope is that we'll get to 40%. Can we achieve that by 2020?
I'm very optimistic, and I think with the fintech and leveraging on the micro lending, today from your phone you can borrow to 2,000, 5,000 easily by collaborating also with the telcos, because the telco, they have your data, they can assist you to borrow 5,000. And I can tell you 5,000 or 10,000 is enough. So for some traders and to do their daily business and move money back. So focus on the fintech and to drive micro-lending will help us also to close that gap.
Now, looking at Nigeria and the progress we've made as a country, as a people, in our drive towards financial inclusion, especially meeting our target 2020, where we're coming from and where we are right now, how would you assess our progress, our achievements, versus perhaps other African countries with similar economies as ours?
If we compare ourselves to other countries, yes, we can say we are not making progress, like Ghana and Kenya, for instance. But if you look at what has been done so far, and from the date we and CBN issued the new strategy for financial inclusion till today, I think all the stakeholders have been working hard to make this to happen. And this is why they have reviewed the new strategy for financial inclusion to make sure that we focus on key areas to make impact, like women, youth, rural areas, and also the North.
Okay, let's talk about EFINA. I mean, you're the new CEO of EFINA. Talk to us about, the strategy. I mean, taking the reins at the helm of affairs at EFINA, what we can expect in terms of perhaps what you're going to be building on and those challenges that you see ahead for yourself.
Great. So EFINA is a financial sector development organization working with the regulators and also the stakeholders. Like I said, our mission is to make the Nigerian financial system work better for everyone, especially for the poor. And we have 4 pillars we are working on to help all the regulators. The first one is research, like I said, to bring credible information and to the regulators, to the stakeholders. We have also innovation fund, where we can give technical assistance to some people who have new projects, but they cannot have access to the banks to get the money. And working with our donors, we can give them a fund from $50,000 to $250,000 for them to start their project. We can move to $1 million when they want to grow. So we have innovation fund, which can help us to drive some initiative in the North with the fintech. We have recently agreed to have the fintech challenge fund, because the fintechs, they have an idea, but sometimes it's not easy. They cannot go to the bank, so we can help them to grow their project. Another thing is capacity building, where we can bring some experts from abroad to share experience, to help people understand some of the products in other countries.
Has that been happening?
Yeah, definitely. We have some working group with the mobile money operators. Okay. We have some breakfast series where we disseminate some of our information. And then we also work with some of the regulators, understand their needs, and if there's a need to train some of them and understand what is happening in India, in Kenya, in Pakistan, we have all the resources to assist them. And finally, we have advocacy, where we sit down with the regulators and share experiences from other countries to help them understand and also enable some improvement in some policies.
I was just going to ask that question, how we're taking a lift from countries that have been successful, like Kenya. What lessons can we learn from countries like that? Are we actively doing that?
Let's say each country has its own peculiarity. Correct. So we can see, we saw what is happening in Kenya. If you look at Kenya, they are tech-led. It's from day one, their mobile digital financial services is telco-driven. In Nigeria, we have decided to make it bank-led. Now, with the new guideline, the Payment Service Bank, which will include the telco and also the FMCGs, I believe that in the next years, the story of Nigeria will be completely different. And people will come to Nigeria to learn what has happened here.
For you, research, talk to us about your research, how you conduct your research, and the kind of, what you do with the research and how it's usually received from the regulators.
Great. So the Access to Finance survey is the primary source for financial inclusion information in Nigeria. And for us, we work with the National Bureau of Statistics, and they certify everything we do. And then we go nationwide and to make sure that we address everyone. And when we look at the sample of people we interviewed for the 2018 research, we interviewed close to 28,000 people nationwide.
And you think that that is enough, a good representation of the zones, every part of the country, and what the issues are?
Definitely.
I mean, we're 180, almost 200 million people.
Definitely. When you work with the National Bureau, it's not about the numbers. They can do they can extrapolate. So it's a very good representative numbers. Okay. So it gives us the clear picture of what is happening in Nigeria. And we work with the regulator. The regulator, they like what we are doing. And then they are using the report and the finding of our surveys to help them enable some policy formulation.
Would you say that there is robust stakeholder engagement?
I can say yes. If you look at last year, CBN and the NCC signed an MOU. Okay. Before, and there was no MOU, and the two industries were not collaborative. But today, they are working together, and they are all of them. They are part of the steering committee of the National Financial Inclusion Strategy. So for me, it's very important. And then, if you look at the new guideline for the PSB, you have many players now who can be involved. The retail chain, FMCG, because they have a large number of distribution. They can apply today and to have the PSB license. So I believe there's a huge engagement of all the stakeholders. And as a development partner, EFINA, we are also part of the steering committee. We are chairing one of the working group, the Special Intervention Working Group, okay, to make sure that we disseminate the finding of our surveys nationwide. What
about, I mean, you talked about, I mean, you mentioned donors, and, you know, talking to some other development institutions, you know, experts, economists, development economists, sometimes they talk about donor fatigue. So for financial inclusion, is it how important or how significant would you say, or as an area of importance it is to donors, either existing or would-be donors? Is it something that perhaps down the line we could begin to experience donor fatigue, or hopefully we'll see some progress before that happens?
I'm very confident that we'll see some progress. Let's say financial inclusion is a development tools today. And if you look at one of the reports from McKinsey Global Institute, they said if we have focus on financial inclusion, there will be a ripple effect. By 2025, it can bring 12.4% to the GDP. Yeah. So there's a focus on that one. And from our side, our two donors, UK's Department for International Development, okay, and Bill Gates and Melinda Foundation, they are very focused on financial inclusions, and they have renewed their support to EFINA in Nigeria.
Okay, so come 2020, we'll reach our target. Then what? What happens from there? Great.
So financial inclusion is not about just access. Once you have access, the next step is usage. Usage, and then there are different impacts. Let's look at the impact outcome. Getting people from poverty to poverty alleviation, okay, is very important. So how do we get poverty alleviation? People should now keep using financial services. Financial inclusion is not only accounts. It's about payment. It's about having access to microloan. So if you have access to microloan, you can develop your own business, and then you can put it back to the system. So we have that impact outcome. And then the usage. So yes, we will reach financial inclusion by 2020 or maybe thereabout, but we will continue to make sure that people keep using the service as we move forward.
Would it be the same level of advocacy? Because sometimes, you know, when you reach a target, there's a possibility or the risk of losing some steam, losing some momentum. So what are the assurances that at that point we will still have the same amount of momentum to keep pushing forward?
Yeah, the momentum is very key. So by the time we reach there, we will maybe shift the momentum to the usage. So how do we use? Now also employment, because at the end of the day, if you don't have job, there's no money, you cannot put it in the banks. So we will move the focus on other pillars to make sure that we keep that momentum and make sure that people use the services, have access to microloan, have access to pension. Like you said, some of the specific targets needs to be worked on. So that momentum will continue after 2020.
If we, for some reason, don't reach that target, for you, what would you say could be that one factor that you see now already as a challenge that you think could be, you know, a bigger problem going forward?
First, I think we will do everything to make the target, for sure. And this is why the regulators has been working hard to come up with some initiatives, some guidelines to make it happen. It's a collaborative effort. Let's be positive, and let's come back here by 2021, maybe, and then we will look at the figures.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Esaie, thank you so much for talking to us today. We appreciate your time. I've been speaking to Esaie Diei. He's the CEO of EFINA. We'll be looking at, of course, the Nigeria's revised National Financial Inclusion Strategy. That's our show for today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. But remember, you can watch all previous episodes of Beyond Markets on our website at CNBCAfrica.com. You can also stay engaged with the hashtag Beyond Markets. And you can send tweets to my Twitter handle too, at Esther O. Awuni. For myself and the team, it's bye for now.